welcome to the Diplomat. The two Koreas have inched closer together for another summit meeting set for September, which is forecast to be a breakthrough in denuclearization process, along with the UN General Assembly and also the 70th anniversary of foundation of the North regime. Therefore, today on Diplomat, we are going to meet Moon Chung-in, President Moon Jae-in's Special Advisor for Unification, Foreign Affairs, and also National Security, to learn more about current situation, as well as the Moon's administration efforts to bring permanent peace to the Korean peninsula.
올림픽을 한번 유치한 바람에 많은 선수들이
그다음에 한 가마가 그런 상황이
Hello, Professor Moon. Thank you very much for joining us today. I believe the Korean Peninsula is moving toward permanent peace and reconciliation. And you've been long advocating that the North nuclear issue should be addressed through dialogue. How do you feel about current moving?
Yeah, we tried everything. Okay. First, we tried the dialogue and negotiation, and that didn't work it out. And then, under the leadership of the United States, the international community has been imposing sanctions against North Korea. Sanctions and pressures haven't been working out either. And then some folks in the U.S. were deliberating on the military options, such as preemptive attack and even bloody nose. But it is too costly. Then they come back to dialogue and negotiation. Therefore, I think they came back to the original place.
Right.
Therefore, there is no other choice but to rely on diplomacy, rely on dialogue and negotiation.
Right.
That is the only way to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue.
You were one of the architects building the Sunshine Policy, and you have been advocating and calling for revival of the policy. What is the basis of your belief on this policy?
I'm not one of the architects. The architect of Sunshine Policy is President Kim Dae-jung and his assistant, Mr. Lim Dong-won. Therefore, President Kim and Ambassador Lim are the two major architects of the Sunshine Policy. I've been playing some kind of assisting role in refining the Sunshine Policy. I have been advocating Sunshine Policy because it's the right choice. Okay? A lot of people misunderstand what is meant by the Sunshine Policy. The first principle of Sunshine Policy is to declare that will not tolerate any kind of military provocation by North Korea. In return, we'll also give up our desire to achieve unification in our own terms, what is called unification by absorption. Then third principle is very important. That is what? Then we promote exchange and cooperation. We build the confidence building between North and South, have a peaceful coexistence, and create the situation in which people, goods, and services can freely move across demarcation line. That is what President Kim Dae-jung calls the de facto unification, if not the de jure or legal unification. Therefore, Sunshine Policy is very common sense approach. Okay, will not tolerate North Korean military provocation. However, will not change North Korean regime and will not take over North Korea. Will pursue unification through mutual consensus and promote exchange and cooperation, confidence building, and pursue peaceful coexistence. And let people, goods, and services move freely between the North and the South.
I see.
That is the really goal of the Sunshine Policy. Therefore, the Sunshine Policy is very much a common sense approach.
Right. You've worked very closely with the three liberal presidents, Kim Dae-jung, Roh Moo-hyun, and Moon Jae-in. I feel like their policies about North Korea are in many ways in line with one another, but there must be some differences. Could you elaborate on the differences?
I don't see any difference. Their approach is very simple approach. They have been arguing that North Korea is a reality. According to our Constitution, Article 3, North Korea cannot be the legitimate state.
According to our Constitution, right.
Therefore, it is kind of anti-state entity.
Right.
However, all those three leaders emphasized that North Korea, recognize North Korea as it is, okay? North Korean reality. Okay? Second, just engage with North Korea. And engaging with North Korea, you got to put yourself in their shoes. Don't try to just impose unilateral views on North Korea. Try to understand from North Korean point of view as a way of understanding their grievances and their concerns. Then be pragmatic. Ideological fixation can derail any meaningful dialogue and negotiation with North Korea. Therefore, be more pragmatic. We South Koreans call the 실사구시.
Right.
Okay? And then ultimately what they are saying is this: in order to prepare for peace, you got to prepare peace, not war. The Roman historian Becedius argued that in order to win peace, you got to prepare war. But no, that's very much misleading, because if you prepare war, then that will enhance mutual distrust, then which will create the vicious circle of mutual distrust and suspicion, and eventually military confrontation and conflict. Therefore, if you want peace, then prepare peace, not war.
I see. You also took part in the first Inner-Korean Summit in 2000 and also the second one in 2007 as well. How was the atmosphere different compared to today's one?
Yeah, there are some differences. For example, during the first and second Korean Summit, those staff who prepared for summit had a real hard time, because the North Koreans always emphasized the political military issue first, such as the withdrawal of American forces from South Korea.
I see.
And South Koreans have been arguing for the incremental approach to inter-Korean relations. Therefore, they emphasized the importance of socio-cultural and economic exchange and cooperation. Therefore, there was a kind of parallel between the North and the South in setting the agenda. Okay?
I see.
But this time, I couldn't see that kinds of things. They instantly come up with those three articles, okay, and in the Panmunjom declaration. That's a very astonishing development. And another one is, for example, in the first and second summit, particularly the second summit, President Roh Moo-hyun really pushed hard to make a denuclearization of North Korea as an agenda, but North Korea refused it. Then Chairman Kim Jong-il refused that one. But this time, Chairman Kim Jong-un instantly accepted, okay, I'll go for complete nuclearization, okay? Therefore, that's a very new development. Third, I think that the North Korean leader was very pragmatic, because he didn't raise the issue of withdrawal of American troops from South Korea. Even the suspension of joint military, ROK-U.S. joint military exercise and training.
Right.
I think that's a very practical development, because if North Korean leader raised that issue, then it would be extremely difficult for a South Korean leader to participate in dialogue with him. Therefore, he was very pragmatic. Okay, in other words, he knew what South Korea wanted. And another, interesting development is what, it is very interesting to note that Chairman Kim Jong-un was saying that we have produced so many declarations agreement, but none of them were implemented effectively. That this time we should commit ourselves to the implementation of the declaration. That's very new development. Usually South Korean leader emphasized that one, not North Korean leader, but this time North Korean leader proactively argued for the importance of the implementation of the declaration. But I think those are some major differences from the first two Korean summit. And also another good thing is this: if you look at the first summit that was done in fact the second year, the third year of the Kim Dae-jung presidential tenure, and then in the case of second Korean summit that was done last year of President Roh Moo-hyun's tenure. But this time, at least two summit talks took place within first year of the President Moon's tenure. That means what? There is a room for further progress, and that's a very, very positive aspect of inter-Korean relations.
Despite all the positive changes and aspects that you've just mentioned, there is a concern about the relationship between the United States and North Korea becoming a standstill point. But I believe you still remain very optimistic about their relationships. Can you tell us about that?
Now, between the United States and North Korea, there have been three salient differences. Okay, first, the United States wants an all-in-one solution to the North Korean nuclear problem. North Koreans have been saying that no, it is impossible. Let us do it incrementally. Second issue, the United States has been always arguing that you dismantle first, then we'll give you a reward. But North Korean position is no, we cannot accept it. Let us do a simultaneous exchange under the basis of the principle of action for action. Third, the U.S. wants to have a specific timetable to push for the denuclearization of North Korea. But North Korea is saying that, look, it all depends on context. Therefore, two sides were showing the parallel in their negotiation behavior.
Right.
The most recent stalemate came from the issue of the declaration to end the war on the Korean peninsula, which North Korea has been wanting, and the American demand for the declaration of the full list of nuclear and missile weapons in North Korea, and then inspection.
Right.
Therefore, but the United States has been arguing that North Korea first declare their nuclear materials, facilities, and weapons, and ballistic missiles, and then accept the inspection. Then the U.S. will go for the declaration to end the war on the Korean peninsula. But the North Korean position is you first, declare the end of war. Because if you go back to Singapore Declaration, Article 1 is setting up the new relationship. Article 2 is establishing a lasting peace regime on the Korean peninsula. Complete denuclearization comes in the third article of the declaration. Therefore, North Korea has been arguing for that sequence. Therefore, let us have a new relationship, and the new relationship can be manifested in terms of declaration to end the war on the Korean peninsula. But I think that they have been, really working very hard. What we Koreans call the 기싸움, kinds of, the tough, bargaining between Washington and Pyongyang. But I personally believe that there will be some kinds of compromise sooner or later. Therefore, they can overcome that hurdle. But in the process of complete denuclearization, there will be numerous hurdles. Therefore, we should keep that in mind.
It's been over 2 months since the President Donald Trump sat down with the North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, and some people say that there's little been made related to the denuclearization process or progress. What do you think needs to be done to move forward in terms of the denuclearization process?
I think the simultaneous exchange of declaration to end the war in Korea and declaration and inspection, should be taken place. That should be the very important stepping stone toward the denuclearization. And there is numerous challenges. Now North Korea is abiding by the freeze. The second stage is the declaration of the list of their nuclear and missile arsenal. Third is inspection. Inspection can be, general inspection, special inspection, arbitrary inspection. The U.S. will be wanting arbitrary inspection. Fourth, there will be verification process. And then finally, dismantlement. And after dismantle, you got to be post-dismantlement, inspection and verification. It's a long process. Therefore,
Yes, it is.
you cannot really solve the North Korean problem, easily.
Right. So we need to be a little bit more patient.
Oh yeah, we got to be patient and prudent,
I see. Meanwhile, South and North held high-level talks on August 13th, and they agreed to hold another Inner-Korean summit in September. What do you think will be discussed in this Inner-Korean summit?
It's very likely that the Chairman Kim Jong-un will be pushing for the implementation of Article 1 and Article 2 of the Panmunjom Declaration. That means what? Normalization of inter-Korean relations and military tension reduction, phased disarmament and transformation of demilitarized zone into peace zone, and the northern limit line into the maritime peace zone, kind of things. But our President Moon Jae-in will be pushing for denuclearization issue. Therefore, he strongly believes that there got to be the declaration to end the Korean War and starting of actual negotiation on the peace treaty or code, on the one hand. But on the other hand, he'll be pushing for North Korea's more sincere and concrete steps toward the denuclearization. The reason why President Moon Jae-in has been pushing for the declaration to end the Korean War is very simple and straightforward. Because he wanted to get a momentum for denuclearization of North Korea.
I see.
That is why President Moon Jae-in will be paying attention to Article 3 of the Panmunjom Declaration.
I see. What kind of impact will this third Inner-Korean summit will have on the Korean Peninsula and also on the relationship between the United States and North Korea?
It's too early to make a prediction. It is good for inter-Korean relations. There are more two leaders of North and South Korea meet more frequently. That would be better for the inter-Korean relations. But as to the U.S. DPRK relations, I really do not know. But I think that President Moon will play a role of facilitator or catalyst in enhancing dialogue and trust between Washington and Pyongyang. But in that sense, the third summit will be very, very conducive to the resumption of dialogue between the two leaders of Washington and Pyongyang.
So, do you think President Moon Jae-in's role will be pretty similar to what he has been playing between the leaders of the United States and North Korea?
Yes, because as to the issue of denuclearization of North Korea, it is very much between the U.S. and North Korea. Therefore, he'll be playing role of, facilitator or catalyst. But as to inter-Korean relations, he'll be taking much more proactive role. And also, he strongly believes that the inter-Korean relations are directly tied to U.S. DPRK relations. Because if there is improved North-South Korean relations, then South Korea can play a more active role in facilitating the trust building between the U.S. and DPRK if they are intertwined.
I see.
That is why, our Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hwa said that South Korea want a virtuous cycle among North and South, North and the U.S., and the U.S. and South Korean relations. It's a trilateral dyadic relations. Therefore, but in that process, then inter-Korean relations can serve as very important impetus for triggering that kind of virtuous cycle.
I see. Then what about the second Kim-Trump summit? There's speculation that Chairman Kim Jong-un may visit the United States for the second summit and also attend the UN General Assembly.
There is a good chance that four leaders from the North Korea, South Korea, U.S. and China can get together in New York during the General Assembly of United Nations. Maybe if if 4 leaders can adopt a declaration to end the Korean War, that would be most ideal. But I don't know whether that will come true or not. But the possibility, if that is possible, then there is a good chance for the summit talk between President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un in the United States. But if that doesn't take place, then it might not be easy.
I see. What will be the most critical aspect of the denuclearization process between the United States and North Korea?
I think trust. Trust is most important. Okay? Therefore, the reason why the American position is you dismantle first, and then we'll give a reward. Then North Korean perception is this: if we dismantle first, then we may encounter the same fate as Libya and Iraq. If we cannot accept it, okay. Therefore, to that extent, North Korea does not trust the United States. But for the United States, it's the same. Okay, if the United States, really. Signed, adopt the declaration to end the Korean War, give a lot of things to North Korea, then North Korea engage in all the tactics of salami tactics, get the benefit and run away, and then that will derail entire negotiation. Therefore, the most critical variable between the U.S. and North Korea right now is the trust. How to build the trust. That will be the most important one.
I see. What is your view in reunification?
But it all depends on how you define, unification. There is some kind of lack of analytical debate on the issue of unification. Unification could mean creation of one single unified nation state. Unification can take form of federation, or it can take the form of a confederation. Therefore, confederate to the state and the federal state, or one single unified nation state. All these 3 models of unification is based on one nation and one state, one sovereignty. But there is another type of unification. That is what the union of South Korean states, which called the Nam북연합. It's like a European Union. North and South Korea retain their own sovereignty while enhance cooperation and integration. They can have regularized the summit talk, can institutionalize the ministerial talks, parliamentary talks. Okay, in that way, they can facilitate cooperation and integration. Okay, then even though it is not the legal unification, we can have a de facto unification. Okay, that is all depend. Okay, and also in terms of methods of unification, we can envisage the German type of unification, what we call the unification by absorption. Also, we can take an example of the Vietnamese model. There's a unification by force. Okay, and also, but in 1990, North and South Yemen achieved unification, but that was that unification was achieved through the mutual consensus. Okay, of course, it failed later on because the stronger North Yemen took over the weaker South Yemen in the process of unification. But I personally argue for mutually consensual, peaceful unification, primarily aiming at the union of North-South Korean states. Okay, later, when there is a free and democratic, to Korea, then the citizens of North and South Korea can take a national referendum. They can decide ultimate form of unification. Okay, we cannot decide the form of unification in which our post generations will be living in. They should decide.
I see. Last but not least, is there anything that you would like to say for those who sincerely longing for permanent peace on the Korean Peninsula?
As I pointed out, prepare for peace. Okay. I would argue culture peace is very, very important because we for old and young generation in South Korea have been so much socialized by the culture of Cold War. Okay? Therefore, it is extremely for us to get away from the kinds of trapping structure. Therefore, I would strongly urge young generations to be acquainted with the culture of peace, the more open and tolerant mind. Okay? In that way, we can achieve peace on the Korean Peninsula.
Thank you very much for sharing your insights with us today, Professor Moon.
My pleasure. Thank you.